Tennessee had proposed legislation, lawmakers in Tennessee had proposed legislation that would make sure that educators would not have the ability to talk about homosexuality at all in the classroom. So if they are discussing sexuality in any way, shape, or form, they wouldn't be able to talk about gay people at all. Fortunately, that proposed legislation did not pass. However, Republican lawmakers in Tennessee are still fighting to make sure that a similar piece of legislation passes. However, they added more to it. And in this case, what they would do is they would force counselors, school administrators, and educators to report to parents if they believe that a particular student is gay.
This is insane to me.
It is.
You know, first of all, they complain and they say, oh no, you know, we're against big government. But this is another sign that, you know, actually Republicans seem to only care about big government, that they're going to force teachers to actually inform parents if they have any inkling that a child may even be thinking about engaging in homosexual acts. As they put it, any student who is engaging in or may be at risk engaging in, and to me that just smacks of thought police. You know, if they get an idea, what if, you know, some child in some school is, you know, perhaps isn't as masculine as the other boys. It doesn't necessarily mean one thing or another. It's unfair, and I also think it's a really dangerous precedent to set if this law passes in Tennessee.
Absolutely dangerous, especially when you consider the number of homeless youth that are part of the LGBT community. A lot of times they will come out to their parents, or their parents will find out some way or another that their kids are gay, and they will literally disown their kids and kick them out of their home. So it's a really big problem within the gay community. And on top of that, you're totally right, Desi. You can't make a judgment call on something like that. Like how, I mean, of course, if a student comes to a counselor and says, I'm gay, then you know they're gay. But that should be confidential. The reason why counselors are usually forced to disclose something about a student is if they're deemed at risk, which means if they're at risk of suicide, if they're being
abused at home, for example.
Exactly.
Yes.
They have a duty to report that to authorities. But in this case, being gay doesn't put you at risk for anything. I mean, Republican lawmakers think it puts you at risk. They think you could change someone's sexuality, but of course we all know that's not the case.
You know, and most of these laws that require counselors to actually step outside of confidentiality to inform parents or authorities, it's to protect the child. Mm-hmm. And I don't see where there's any protection of the child going on here. It actually seems to be unnecessarily exposing the child, obviously.
Punishing the child.
Punishing the child for being even, you know, slightly outside of whatever the counselor or the teacher believes is going to be their definition of at risk or outside normal behavior. You know, what if you got a tomboy girl? Is she going to suddenly have to then have her parents be called in because she's a tomboy? You know, these are ridiculous, crazy laws that they're trying to push through. It's just really shocking to me, especially with the number of kids that are homeless that say that they have been kicked out of their homes or have left their homes because they were in an atmosphere that was difficult for them because they are gay or lesbian or bi or transsexual.
Yeah, just to give you guys some specific numbers, because, you know, this statistic was really mind-blowing for me. 40% of homeless youth are LGBT, and many of them report that the reason they left home was to escape an environment hostile to their sexual orientation.
So in this case, you know, you could actually, that counselor or that teacher could actually be setting up that child for abuse as well if they're in a home that does not accept that.